If you clicked on this video, odds are you probably saw the news already. Sony announced that they will stop producing discs as early as January 2028. Why? Money. Now, before we get to the boring stuff, I'm just gonna give my opinion. Personally, Sony's kind of based. No, I'm just kidding. It sucks. Like, massively. It kind of makes me want to drive into a brick wall. Physical media has been resurging throughout various media types for Gen Z consumers. Hey, that's me. We got books, vinyl records, CDs, even DVDs. I got Genki textbooks. Cool, learning Japanese because I'm a weeb. Anyways, the Dune books that maybe I'll read at some point. Real Ball Knowers. The Percy Jackson series. Not only does it serve as an alternative to the shittified ecosystems of, well, basically everything, but it also provides collectors a form of satisfaction. Personally speaking, I just like collecting the medium of whatever I'm consuming. It sort of like has like a tangible effect on my hobbies. I like collecting stuff. I got books, as I just shown, physical copies of whatever games I play, as well as even the shitty little manuals we used to get back when we were little for GameCube. I remember those. Sonic Heroes, your manual has saved me plenty of time as I stare out the window on the school bus. This was all, of course, before Nintendo started koizumiing all over the place. They really recorded that, and then several Nintendo employees had to approve that before airing it out to the public. Pretty cool. It's crazy that in the year of 2026, Nintendo of all companies is the one that's turning around in terms of PR by not really doing anything. Microsoft is laying off several different game studios after buying them up, and PlayStation is just, yeah, they're just collapsing like in real time. Not only did PlayStation announce a conclusion of production for physical discs, but they also announced that the PlayStation Store on PS3 and the Vita will be closed next year. I'm not someone that goes back to those games and plays those because I have most of my games, and also I still have my PS3 rotting somewhere, but even if I wanted to play those games, but there are viable emulators out there. Technically speaking, only for the games that I own for legal reasons. But I'm sure that there are consumers of PlayStation 3 and Vita games in particular that would love to go back, and in the future, they won't be able to do so. It's not that this decision in particular is like very important. In the future, this gives insight into their decision-making process. These two decisions are not coincidences, and there's also no chance that they made this announcement shortly after GTA 6 confirmed that there will be no physical release, right? There's just no way that these two events line up. You see Sony or PlayStation as an entity trying to sweep everything under the rug, right? Hoping things would pass because GTA 6 is coming out. No, of course not. Right after I wrote the script, it came out that people are finding out more and more that it's more likely that GTA 6 will have no disc at all, like period. There was a thing saying that, oh, it will just be released in the future. No, not at all. You see, PlayStation is ultimately a company, which means that its parent company, Sony Group Corporation, must make sure that its stock price keeps increasing and profits ever so rising. Shortly after making the announcement to ditch physical discs, the stock price maintained and even rose. This is because of the obvious notion that ditching production leads to reduction in costs. There's stuff like manufacturing, distribution, publishing costs, as well as even the little pamphlets we used to get. Those all cost money to make and pack and distribute. Even when large retailers sell them, they have to give a cut to a publisher or some other entity. By cutting these steps out, Sony is saving potentially millions and millions of dollars per title. I'm no expert in the gaming industry, so my estimate is probably off on that. You could probably make the logical conclusion that by ceasing production, you would save cost as a company. When you combine that with the fact that physical game sales are at their lowest in favor of digital marketplaces, it only makes sense from a business point of view to eventually ditch the system. I truly think, especially now that this announcement was made, that the PS5 was made with two different versions, the digital and the non-digital versions, in order to test this like theory going forward, right? After this announcement, it's pretty much like confirmed that the PS6, or at least the next generation, will have no disc version at launch, whereas the PS5 version did. This is because if the customer decides to go and get the digital only version of the PS5, not only would Sony save money on the disc drive for that console, but then also every subsequent purchase of every game that that customer makes for that console, they would save in favor of profits, right? They're going to save a lot more money while also increasing the amount of profits and therefore reducing their bottom line, which will therefore make their shareholders happy. Because ultimately, in this world that we live in, money drives everything. Of course, every company should always seek to make billions and billions of dollars in profit and make their consumer base smaller, because ultimately, it's just money. Greed. So, where do we go from here? Well, definitely not in the direction that benefits the player, that's for sure. Cutting off viable ways to purchase a game ensures that control is given back to the corporation rather than the player or consumer. Think about it. If you can only buy games through the PlayStation Store, do you really expect them not to pull the plug eventually, preventing you from accessing your library at any moment? No, of course not. In fact, they already proven that with this announcement. That will probably happen in the next generation for PS4 games, and eventually will happen for PS5 games. What about price dynamics? If the only spot to buy games is through the PS Store, then Sony can dynamically adjust prices just like how e-commerce sites online do. This happens during sale seasons like the holidays, or even just randomly based off geographic locations and also timing of the day. And just to top it off, I read an article today saying that price increases for the PlayStation Plus subscription is also not off the table. It just seems like PlayStation has went from omega greedy to player friendly throughout the PS4 era and is now flipping over to the crazy levels of greed, just like a stock market. Whether or not this is accelerated by current events, that remains to be seen. It is, however, most likely the case that this was going to happen eventually. Games are getting bigger, both technically speaking as well as financially, so maybe that's why they feel like they have to cut costs somewhere. Like, think about it. FF7 Rebirth, which I have right here, is 2 discs. We got 2 discs for FF7 Rebirth. Ignore the Persona 3 thing. I just misplaced that. This game came out in 2024 and it required 2 discs. FF7 Revelations just got announced, and I doubt that they're also gonna make that on 1 disc. That is for sure going to be a multi-disc game. When the Switch 2 was revealed, it was also announced that special Switch 2 cartridges would have to be made in order to fit games of that size onto cartridges for the Switch 2. And doing so, it offloaded production costs onto the consumer by making the physical versions of games cost $10 or so more. If you bought the game digitally via the eShop, those games would cost a little bit cheaper. I don't have the Switch 2, so I can't really confirm that as of today, but I'm pretty sure that was the case, and it still is the case. If you want to correct me on that, let me know down below, and also leave a comment and potentially subscribe. Anyways, would Sony do the same thing? No, of course not, right? This was proven with the dynamic pricing thing from earlier. If they can just freely change the price at any point due to a variety of reasons, they're not really incentivized to do that. Despite the usual doom and gloom going on regarding the future possibilities of the gaming industry, I think it would be a good idea to potentially posit some maybe optimistic point of views. There is a part of me that somewhere down the line, maybe another form of physical storage will be used for physical games, but I guess with CDs being as cheap as possible to make, maybe that isn't gonna happen. I would also like to believe that discussions were held regarding infrastructure improvements. Maybe they talked about how they would possibly change their backend so that if they do pull the plug, you would still have access to your library, therefore making sure every console is not online only for the rest of their life, right? Now, is that likely? Maybe. I'm sure someone brought that up. There has to be someone there in the top positions that are not so blindly deluded by money and by the green that they would not bring that up. There should be an alternative option, at least eventually. But then also, if you're saving cost now, and then with those savings you make more money so that in the future an alternative exists, would the company that made so much money be willing to spend more money on that alternative? Probably not, because let's be real, if they made that much money to begin with, it's clearly working, so there wouldn't be incentives to do that. Somehow Nintendo and the PC market will absorb the rest of the gaming space, and eventually it will all funnel towards PC, because at the end of the day, things are becoming more and more expensive, and these companies are just drilling themselves into the earth. So people are finding less and less of a reason to tie themselves into these ecosystems that will eventually just cost the same. You can argue that Nintendo is probably the only other one capable of this, because right now Mario's that guy. So if you keep Mario and you keep Pokemon and you keep every single one of those games on the Switch 2, and for the future, yeah, Nintendo's probably going to be okay. Sony games, there is emulation, and I'm sure people are going to do that. I don't do that, not like out of a moral thing, I just think it's annoying, but I might have to do that. Legally, I'm joking. I won't ever do that. And if I do that, it will be for games I own already. If you made it to the end of this video, I bought my copy of FF7 Rebirth to prove a point that the games are getting more and more expensive because of the 2 stores thing, but I did want to add that I'm very excited for part 3 FS7 Revelations. If you want to see my reaction to the announcement trailer, I did make a video on Jeff's Summer Game Fest event that happened like a month ago. That's probably my most previous reaction. If you have thoughts on this situation, let me know down below what works and what doesn't work. Maybe my optimistic viewpoint of the future won't matter even a year from now. Heck, maybe even like 5 days from now, they come up with saying that they have no other options. Maybe they'll just quadruple down and just seek profits. In which case, okay, you know, what could you do at that point? Consider leaving a comment down below, and also give a thumbs up and subscribe, because otherwise, I don't know why I'm doing this. Anyways, bye. Read One Piece.